Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? That was a little lackluster. We're in a library space. Let's see if we can pep it up. Hello, everybody. There we go. Let's raise the sound all the way to these ceilings. Good evening and welcome. I'm Julia Kolchinsky-Dasbach, a professor of English and creative writing, new to Denison, and very excited to be a part of this incredible university and community. And it is my pleasure to welcome my dear friend and luminous poet, Sam Sachs. But before my gushing introduction of Sam, let me start with a few words of gratitude. First, thanks so much to the family of Harriet Ewins Beck, whose generous gift has funded the endowment that has supported readings and residencies by star-studded cast of writers enriching our cultural life here at Denison for more than 50 years. Thank you to the Denison Library and this incredible space and this organ and high ceilings behind us for hosting this event. Immense gratitude to Dr. Margot Singer, English professor and director of creative writing, for helping to coordinate and facilitate the visit, and the many others that we have forthcoming later this semester. So please keep an eye out on details about visits from Brenda Hillman on March 25th, Roger Robinson on April 2nd, and finally Erica Meitner on April 9th. And now to our main event and reason for gathering this evening. I have been lucky enough to know Sam for over a decade. We met at a week-long intensive workshop at the Yiddish Book Center when we were both baby poets, as I like to say, writing and reading our early work to one another in coffee shops and dreaming of the books we would one day have, of our work, of our poems doing work in the world. And let me tell you, Sam's poems are doing the work. I have already seen the way Sam's writing has transformed the writing of many of the students who are right here in this room tonight. It has made them braver on the page, more apt to take risks with music and meaning, more aware of the stakes within each line, each word, of the potential they carry for fierce emotional energy. Sam Sachs is a queer Jewish writer and educator. Their most recent book of poems is Pig, available right back there. You see where the computer is? Everybody look. Isabel's waving. That's where you want to get Sam's book, and they're going to be generous enough to sign it for you personally after the reading. Publishers Weekly called it vivid, sensuous, and gorgeous, and I agree. They are also the author of Madness, winner of the National Poetry Series, and Bury It, winner of the James Laughlin Award from the Academy of American Poets. Their first novel, You're Dead, will be published by McSweeney's in August of 2024. That's this year. A two-time Bay Area Grand Slam champion. They have poems published in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Poetry Magazine, Granta, and elsewhere. Sam has received fellowships from the National Endowment of the Arts, the Poetry Foundation, Yaddo, Lambda Lit, and MacDowell, and they are currently serving as an ITALIC Lecturer at Stanford University. Sam's work teaches us the way language connects across borders of experience, identity, nation, and generations. Sam's poems sing out of our violent present moment and urge us to be aware of the dark history they tug behind them, and yet not to linger in sorrow, but reach towards joy, towards light, and yes, towards laughter. As a Jewish proverb says, laughter can be heard farther than weeping. And I still remember the first time I heard Sam perform. Couldn't help but be overcome by tears in one moment and laughter in another. The beautiful blend of light and dark that reminds us being moved to tears and at once laughter is what makes us all human. Our joy and our grief can connect rather than divide us. Please join me in welcoming Sam Sachs.
this here so I don't use a little lapel mic a la TED Talk energy, you know? Thanks for making out in like the literal freezing temperature, you know? I looked at it was 29 degrees. No, thank you. I live in California, and when it gets into the 50s, you know what I mean? The city shuts down. You know, kids stay home from school. You get it. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for big gratitude for inviting me to come here. Thank y'all for sitting here, navigating the treacherous cold, and thanks to everyone trying to study. Yeah, I'm gonna read a lot of filthy poems. It's gonna be the arc of the next half hour or so. Yay, we got some cheers in back. This is for you, kindred. Cool, so yeah, I think the way it's gonna work is I'm gonna read for like 30 minutes or until it gets like unfun or boring, and then we can have a conversation, and then we'll close it out. Does that sound good? We got nods, but can I have like a vocal? Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. Sorry, you know, we're co-creating this space together. Okay, you know, I think we're in a library, so let's fuck up the conventions of the library and not shush at all. And to that end, I'm gonna read mostly out of this book that came out in September called Pig. And it's a book of poems about pigs in the sort of like widest umbrella of the pig category. So that's like, we're talking about the animal, you know? We're talking about men and policing, okay? We're talking about gender identity. We're talking about global food systems. We're talking about famous literary pigs, okay? We're talking about, you know, other kinds of pigs, which you will learn about, you know, if you read this book. So I'm gonna read some work out of that and then some new things, just to let you know where we're going. And this first poem is like my most sort of optimistic poem. My brother had twins. Okay, they're my nibblings, which is like the ungendered term for a niece or nephew. Yep, because let's not map the gender binary onto children, you know? Y'all agree. Okay, and so I wrote a poem for them in anticipation of their birth, you know? I was like, y'all are gonna be born and this world is bad, right? So like, how do I like welcome you into it? And so this is a portrait, nope, that's a different one. This is a poem for my nibblings in anticipation of their birth. For Solomon and Ruby. My brother, knowing my work well, asked I not include any references to semen in the throat in this poem I'm writing you. So I shan't. Instead, semen in the books. Semen in the leaves. Semen in the ground that grows the semen trees, also known as the calorie pear. Semen in the boat that carried our family here. Semen in the waters where we left our dead. Semen in the meadows where we buried and bled. Semen in the light streaming through the stained glass of our synagogue. The image depicting an ark in an ocean of semen. Gossamer semen. Octopus semen. Garden of semen. There are so many words for you children, and none of them are dirty, though not all of them are yours. Now, as you eat what your mother eats, her fear is your world torn and thrown to birds, but still, the light is thick in the trees. The calorie pears are loud this season, and my throat is bright with flowers for you both. Such beautiful flowers. I hardly have the words. Okay. Thank you. Yes, you can snap, you can scream in between poems. You know what I mean? You can cuss, you can like whisper a secret to your neighbor that you've never shared with anyone else in your whole life. You know, we're just trying to build community and, you know, promote good transgression. Okay, so this is a poem I wrote on the plane here. It's new. I've only shared it with Julia. We'll see how it goes. Have any of y'all like looked up yourself on the internet? Okay. No, good, smart. Okay, so I Googled myself on my flight here, and I was like, ugh, that's a bad feeling. And then I was thinking about like the progressive technology it took to like get us to a place where I could do that, and I was like, ugh, yuck. Okay, so this is called Googling myself from the troposphere. After we split flint and obsidian into slow knives, After the inaugural wheel and all who died over the turning gears, who rewrote the composition of steam, who rendered gasoline from extinct species, panoply of electrocuted elephant hearts and coal-mined flattened mountains. After the race to the godless moon where the shot-dead president said something about a self and something about a country, although I'm sure he must have gotten that backwards. After all this, I ride the Wright brothers' legacy through turbulence, a lone wing light illuminating the night, which was, for all time before us, unilluminated. And here I type and type again my own small name to see if anyone's written anything mean about me. And glory, this apotheosis of all our technological advancement. If that searching isn't an indictment of our species, I can point you toward other examples. How embarrassing. My neighbor in her middle seat and middle age looks over at my own face, reflected up at me through the bad mirror of the screen as the complimentary Wi-Fi slow unveils the photograph an ex took, standing in a garden, looking through the camera into him as if he'd never hurt me. I close the screen and that me dies. Outside the window, the moon asks us nothing. Okay, thank you for the, yeah, okay, so y'all could do that too, you know, if it resonates. Okay, I'm gonna do another new one. Also about sort of technology, okay? Y'all heard of it? Do y'all have Instagram? Is anyone followed by like porn bots? Does anyone know about the term like porn bots? Y'all know. Okay, so there are like these porn accounts that like are AI mostly, or like scam accounts, and they use like pictures of like people like that aren't actually people in order to, you know what I mean, sell, like get scam money. We all understand what a porn bot is. Okay, so my friend posted this Instagram post, okay, of like a Walgreens getting defaced by a bunch of anarchists that like a bunch of my friends were at in Oakland, and then she posted this other thing underneath that said, LOL at the porn bots liking the photo of the Walgreens getting vandalized. Okay, and so that's the title of this poem. Do y'all say lol or LOL? Depends. Okay, it's context specific, so I'm gonna shift back and forth because there's a refrain. All right. LOL at the porn bots liking the photo of the Walgreens getting vandalized. LOL at the Walgreens suddenly evangelized. At the manufactured medicine shortages fixed with a brick, at the insulin and antiretrovirals finding better homes in the living cathedral of our friends' bodies. LOL at the deodorants liberated from their glass prisons, spreading that cucumber mint scent across some familiar armpits in West Oakland. LOL at the BART train bottoming through the early night, carrying booty and bounty alike. LOL at the detergents, at the spiral rack of sunglasses emptied, at the Robitussin devoured in powerful sips. LOL at my youth, drinking that shit until I floated over fence posts and marshlands, where even my mother's face grew pixelated. LOL at the present and past collapsing into robo-tripping while I'm just trying to write about porn bots. LOL at the paint markers making a new harvest of bank windows, at the Zionists trembling in their museums, at the vandalized museums in the vandals' hands. In the 1600s, the word vandal began to mean, quote, destroyer of what's beautiful. Lol at what's beautiful and who gets to say so, at whole disciplines invented to defend the indefensible. Lol at etymology, believing we can achieve sense based on what came before this. Lol at what came before this. At the language written down so we wouldn't forget, then forget. And bless all us gathered tonight after blockading the death gala to watch a woman on stage, slowly applying paint to her face and taking an old song into her mouth. If anyone knows we are living through the end of the world, it is the porn bots. They are to be trusted more than we know. Little oracles programmed to extract pleasure and scam capital, to represent what happens when desire leaves the small pharmacy of our breathing. Lol at the virus created. The porn bots we pray to each night, messaging cuckold and titties, messaging flawless skin and cunt. Their old canticle going something like this. Hello, lipstick. I'm not married, no children, hot and beauty. My nudes, all for you, honey. Come ink, as if to say, if you follow me, I will follow you back. Here is the stolen shape of a body, a mouth made from data, and I say LOL. I too will like whatever destroys what destroys the living. Okay, cool. Okay, those are 2 new poems, a little messy, but it's an invitation for y'all to write your own mess, okay? And life, you know, is not formulaically structured and as messy as all hell. How are we doing 2 poems in? Still feeling present, embodied, alive? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna read some more poems about pigs. Yeah, but which ones? Boop-ba-doop, boop-boop, boop-ba-doop. Okay, all right, this is just 4 lines. Okay, so this is like the fact of the book for me when I was researching. I spent 6 years writing and researching this book, and I learned that like nearly every sort of colonial invading army brought like a herd of pigs with them in order to feed their soldiers because they reproduce so quickly. And then what they left behind sort of transformed local ecologies. Wild, right? And so like the history of pigs is also like the history of imperialism. Okay, so that, or a piece of the history of pigs. All right, so this is nearly every invading army brought pigs with them to feed their soldiers. They reproduce so quick, generations could be eaten during a single siege. Adaptable, they followed, devouring towns and forests, so soldiers ate the worlds they invaded. Even after illness swept through the men like wind through a grain silo, the pigs they left behind, killing the hillside, remain. Okay. And to further our conversation about pigs and ecology, are there like hog lagoons around here? Do y'all know about hog lagoons? Okay, so like with factory farming, there needs to be like a spill off for all of the like pig excrement. And so like there'll just be these like massive, you know, like pits of pig shit, yeah, that like destroy the sort of local communities. And so this is a poem about that. Hog lagoon. You can smell it soon as you enter the state. Caught from space, the pools look like wounds in the earth, cut precise and surgically pink. Hundreds of millions live and die inside the factory. Waste falls through the slats and slides into pits, stored in the open to be sprayed onto crops which are fed to these pigs' children. Pink, vicious cycle. Some humans mistake the spray for rain. Some children open their mouths to catch faith on their tongues. The rain makes its way into homes even with the windows closed, makes its way into rivers and lakes. What happens inside the factory can never stay inside the factory, no matter what the farm believes it pays, no matter how thick the walls, we all eat shit. Everything that happens on earth happens everywhere, comes up in us as fungus we won't taste till we're dead. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, don't recommend visiting a hog lagoon. Tell you what. Okay, what else about pigs? There's more to say. There's like a whole book about it. Okay, this is all right, we're gonna do a couple of Jewish, they're all Jewish poems, but we're gonna do a couple more Jewish poems. This is like an epithalamium, which is like a wedding poem, and I got a wedding invitation to someone I used to sleep with's wedding, but he was like an asshole and closeted, and so this is kind of like a response to that. And do y'all know what parv is? It's like, in like kashrut law, you need like, in order for like something to be acceptable, it can't have like meat or dairy in it, and so if it's like clean, it's parv. If it's like, yeah, okay. Okay, epithalamium. To please God, there's an epigraph that goes, X and X request the pleasure of your company at the celebration of their union. All right. To please God, the wedding will be parv, even if the marriage is doomed. The couple will reproduce so many small tragedies, not least of all, their butterless cake. Of course, the children will come out bruised. The light bulb breaks under the groom's foot because even joy must be tempered. I look most Jewish when crying at weddings for the wrong reasons, when organizing my books by date, when apologizing to trees for the nature of paper. Why these old laws when my appetites now would be scorched from the earth by even the gentlest Old Testament God? If you train the body in restraint, pleasure finds its way one way or another. X used to laugh as my tongue traced maps across his stomach, then call me a faggot behind my back. For so long, I would not touch myself for fear of finding a body. I'm sorry I can't make it to your wedding. Okay. Don't invite me to your wedding. JK. No, I don't want to go to anybody's wedding, honestly. Oh, maybe that's a good translation to another wedding poem. So I just officiated my buddy Cameron Ockridge and Franny Choi's wedding, and this is an epithalamium I wrote for their wedding. And I've only read this once before, so we'll see if it works in this space. We still here? Alive and okay, cracking. Okay. Epithalamium for Cameron and Franny. Y'all should read their work. All right, this is a strange place to begin, but in Paris, before they built the catacombs, great bone city below the city, there were so many dead, one prominent theologian suggested taking all those bodies and building a cathedral. True story. The process of vitrification turns the body to glass. For those most pious, he suggested turning them to windows, light staining the old stories. For the rest of us, bricks. They did not build this cathedral for more or less obvious reasons. I know, a strange place to begin. A lot of dead men have a lot of things to say about love, and we nod our heads at what they've mapped onto our living. Love isn't necessarily anything, bridegroom or bridal or bridge. A man wrestles an angel, a world slowly fills with water. Just another word that spills with light or blocks out the cold. All language can be a possible cathedral. When you say I love you, you are building something to pray inside. You are illuminating gone stories. O great bone city below the city. O sacral wild thing. O great cathedral that never was yet lives. When I say I love you, it holds the heavens and the catacombs both. It is terrible with windows. Okay. We'll see how their marriage goes. JK, it's okay, but it's like a system built on like property and ownership, We know about the history of marriage. This is a university, okay? Okay, so here we are, just over halfway through the reading, just letting you know where we're at and where we're going, okay? So this next poem is an abecedarian, which is like a poem that takes, y'all know, nerds, cool. I learned recently when working on this book that there's like a sort of Hebraic origin to the abecedarian, which I didn't realize. But anyways, I wrote this book, this poem, which is an anti-Zionist abecedarian. I'm an anti-Zionist Jewish person. And so I wrote like 40 of these and trying to get toward the right one, And so this is like in some ways a prayer for like other Jewish people to divest from statehood or notions of statehood is something that is like central to like our identity or religious practice. And I take a lot of comfort in like that Bundist idea like, of Doiket. Y'all heard about this? Okay, the Bundists, bunch of baddies, socialists, Jews, sort of have this idea of here-ness, right, which is sort of in opposition to Zionism. And so the idea is that you're in right relationship with the land where you're at, you know what I mean? Which I think is an invitation for all of us to do and to be, right, to be in right relationship with where we're at. So there's an anti-Zionist abecedarian. After you finish building your missiles, and after your borders collapse under the weight of their own split databases, every worm in this fertile and cursed ground will be its own country. For us, home never was a place in dirt or even inside the skin, but just exists in language. Let me explain. My people kiss books as a form of prayer. If dropped, we lift them to our lips and mouth an honest and uncomplicated apology. nowhere on earth belongs to us. Once a man welcomed me home as I entered the old city, so I pulled out a book of poems to show him my papers, my queer city of paper, my people's ink running through my blood. Settlers believe land can be possessed. They carve their names into firearms and use this to impersonate the dead. We are visitors here on earth. Who but men blame the angels for the wild exceptionalism of men? Yesterday, a bird flew through an airport and I watched that border zone collapse beneath its basic wings. Cool. Okay. Thanks, y'all. Snap, snap, snaps. Okay, and this is like a newer poem. Like I wrote that like 7 or 8 years ago, and that was like sort of a call to other sort of like lefty Jews to sort of divest from these ideas of statehood and nation. And I think they're cool, but I think it's like kind of not as useful to the current moment we're living in, right? With like an active sort of occupation and genocide in Gaza. And so this poem is a love poem to some friends of mine who blocked the Bay Bridge where I live for a full day when President Biden was visiting. And it's for folks, right, who put their bodies on the line in response to systemic and structural violence, right? And like a love letter to them, if I can find it. Okay. Yeah, so this is an ode to those who block tunnels and bridges. Yeah. And okay, and this also, so I wrote this on the day of their arraignment because they're facing federal and state charges. And it's also for like a bunch of JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, sort of blocked 8 bridges on that same day, on the last day of Hanukkah, which felt like this symbolic moment. All right, ode to those who block tunnels and bridges. Teach us there can be movement in stillness. In each broken syllable of traffic, a syllabus that says, when you are unwell, we are all unwell. Instead, let us distill business as usual down to the speed of a tree eating light. As usual, business is built from freight trains and warships, even when it's just coffee. These bridges should only connect the living, so when the living turn toward death worship, it's time again to still the delivery of plastics and red meats to the galas of venture capital. Time to reject our gods if they are not the gods who teach us all that comes from dirt returns to it holy. The holiest word I know is no. No more money for the elliptical rat king of money. No more syllogisms that permission endless suffering. No more. And on the 8th day of a holiday that represents a people fighting occupation, my teachers, who stretched a drop of oil into a week of light, take each other's arms across 8 bridges of this settler colony and sing prayers older than any country, even as the chevron burns still in the distance. Oh, stilted vernacular of life. Oh, pedagogues of the godly pausing. Oh, what respite lets mycelia spread its speaking limbs beneath the floors of our cities. The only holy land I know is where the living are living. In the story I was taught, alongside my first language, it takes God 6 days to make the terrible world. And on the 7th day, he rested. And on the 8th, we blocked traffic. Cool. Thanks, yo. Okay, another poem in progress. Okay. I'm gonna have some water. Y'all need water? No. Maybe we all take a sip together. If you got it, drink it. Okay. So I've got 7 minutes left of my prepared reading time, just to let you know where we're at, where we're going, where we've been. And I think that's time for like maybe two more poems. 2 or 3? Okay. Permission. All right, so I'm gonna do some poems. Okay, I'm gonna do this one poem do y'all know who Miss Piggy is? Okay, a couple fans. So there's gonna be okay, I know where I'm going. So this is a poem for her, who's like a dear icon for me as a young homosexual, and a fan of the Muppets. So this is for her, and there's gonna be a moment where I invite you to participate, so just be on the edge of your seat the whole time. Okay, this is for Miss Piggy. Oh, great porcine drag queen, You who grew erudite in the slaughterhouse shadow, eyelashes like black swords teased up to challenge heaven, eternal in your powdered foundation, refusing every day the knife's inevitable and unkosher ending. Besnouted fount of youth, seminal queer iconoclast, pearls to bed, pearls in the junkyard, pearls on television, diva of late night, of talk shows, of prime time, door kicker for the non-conventional romance, shown us how to love across identities arbitrary as phylum and species. Bless that impossible coupling. How you took an entire frog inside you and remained the same bad pig who'd karate chop anyone dumb enough to disrespect. And then on 3, can I get a hi-ya? Like a Miss Piggy? Okay, 1, 2, 3. That was terrible. Okay, can we try it again and like put our whole like chest into it? All right, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, like slightly better, but can we do it one final time and just like freak out the people doing their P-sets upstairs? Do y'all call them P-sets here? I just learned what a P-set is this year. It's like math. Okay, all right, you ready? Y'all ready to fuck it up? All right, 1, 2, 3. Hi. What little queer wouldn't look upon you and be seen or saved or salved? You who never questioned you're destined for stardom. Oh, miss, oh, great swine demi-monde. Oh, dame pig. I'm yours till I end. You, my religion. How I understand all this now. We are ourselves and the hand inside that guides us. We who are given voice by the same spirit that gives voice to everyone we have ever loved. Cool, thanks. Okay, and then I think I got time for two more, if that's right. And you know, if you haven't been like what follows this is like a Q&A. So if you haven't been like thinking of questions, you know, you could start now. We could talk. If like the energy isn't talking, we could do other stuff. We could do like a line dance or something. So any number of possible futures we all share in this one moment. Okay. But like, what's the energy I'm trying to close on? Do you know what I mean? Okay, I'm gonna do like a sad one and then a sad one with a lift. So have y'all seen the feature film Babe? Starring Babe the Pig, and like human actors, but lesser characters. So this is a poem for Babe the Pig. Okay, it's called, there's a moment in the film, right, where Babe is raised by sheep. Okay, very queer. And then the sheep mother dies, and then, y'all remember this? And then Babe makes the sheep mother noise, you know? Wild. Okay, so this is called Babe the Pig does the sheep noise when mourning its sheep mother. Yeah, I know. Take care of yourselves. Grief is an animal. We all know that. But which animal exactly? What kingdom, what family? Is it ever a fish? Does its voice change as it leaves the body, or is there a bestiary somewhere in the chest? Great bone arc that crates and creates each heaving lamentation, remakes the grieved thing as noise. At the televised funeral, the ingenue performs the gone singer's living song and for a moment is overtaken. Slow howl opening the painted cage of her mouth. When Sean died, I made sounds I haven't made since. It came into me as wind. It rode me as wind. Cool. Thanks, y'all. I was realizing this was kind of not that filthy of a reading. There's like a lot of BDSM in this book, if like that's something you're interested in reading about. But as I get older, it's something I feel like less and less comfortable reading at college campuses. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like when I was in my 20s, I was like, and now I'm like, I don't know, maybe not the energy. Okay, with that confession in mind. For this final poem, it sort of closes with another invitation from y'all. So when I go like this, will you do that on your own human chest as well? We got it? I wonder if we can get louder. Can y'all try stomping? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that at the end of the poem. Thank you, and also great heartbeats, everyone. Okay, so this poem is for a friend of mine. He has Marfans. And it's called xenotransplantation, okay, which is this process of putting like a part of an animal organ into your human living body, which is something that happens because science is witchcraft. Anyways, this is a poem for him. It's called Xenotransplantation. My friend's got a pig heart in him. Or my friend's got part of a pig's heart. A piece. His heart's part pig. The aortic valve is the dog god guarding the tube blood runs through once it's been scrubbed clean. One of two semi-lunar valves, which sounds like a part of a moon, a piece. My friend's got moons in him, separating the two major atria. My friend is filled with ballrooms, those dark vaulted ceilings. My friend's a vegan. My friend's a vegan with a pig heart, thumping club music. My friend believes the pig in him is vegan too, since it eats what he eats, speaks when he speaks. The pig heart pulses in his chest like a reflection of the moon in a puddle out behind the club once we've finished dancing. My friend takes drugs so his body doesn't reject the organ. My friend takes drugs so he can go on dancing. His pig, grown to be sewn into a man's ribs, unnaturally selected. No God could have predicted this in any garden. Still holy, the bit of tissue that lets him live and live, thin miracle that set another 17 years going inside him. If you listen close with one ear to his chest, you can hear the pig heart singing, calling out to any listening animal, all I want is to live and live and live and live. Hey, thanks y'all, appreciate it. Okay. Oh my God, that was 31 minutes and 25 seconds. We killed that. Congratulations, everybody. You just listened to 30 minutes of poems with like humorous interstitial banter. Okay. So now we're at the discussion part of the conversation. So I don't know, I guess if I'm facilitating it, may I see if anyone has any questions? Any cues from the audience? Hey, I like your bangs. Yeah. Hey. Mm. Yeah. Gorgeous. Thank you for that question. Do you mind if I repeat it? Did everyone hear it? More or less? Okay, the gist of it was about like when to pull, like how I pull from autobiographical experience, just was at like the heart of it, and like how, particularly with like poems that navigate difficult personal material. There's a question. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that question. Important question. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, kind of always. For me, I think like, for me, I love to think about, I mean, and this is not like when I teach poetry, I don't do this. You know, I'm not like right into the most traumatic thing that happened to you and try to figure out how to make it legible or multiply realizable on a page, right? But for my own practice, I tend to move towards moments that have like some kind of like discordant utchkiness between like my experience of embodiment and like the structures and history in the world around me, and sort of right into that collision. And often that happens when like something like really horrible happens, you know, or like when I feel like deep disgust or despair or like pleasure and I don't know how to locate it, you know, like often I'll think about the poem as a way to like, not like understand it, but to like see it on the page. Yeah, I think like one of the, like a lot of my poetry teachers, particularly out of Poetry Slam, right, thinking of like Anis Mojgani, who's like a friend of mine. I don't know if y'all know his poems, he's great. But I think often finds like saying like to write into like discomfort or discord is like where you'll find a lot of surprises in your like creative, aesthetic, and political work. So yeah, I mean, I tend to write, I mean, even when it's not like trad autobiography. Do you know what I mean? Like when it's not like an authentic one-to-one sort of experience for my life. Like everything is through like the lens of myself or yourself as a writer, you know? So like whether or not like they're capital T truth experiences, you're like responsible for the work. And so I think like that's how I tend to think about it in my own writing practice. Did that make sense? I feel like I blacked out when I was talking to you. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me know if I'm being illegible and achronological in this conversation. Yeah, but I think it's an important question. And that issue I think comes up in like publishing my work or reading my work out a lot, like when it implicates other people, you know, and I feel like that's like, for me, the ethical quandary, you know, is like, if I'm writing a poem that like talks about how much, well, I'm recording, so how much I hate someone else's father, you know, like I'm worried about who, you know, like how that other person's father might respond to it, you know? But I think for my own sort of like revelation or like revealing the difficult stuff, I tend to like hold on to that until I feel like emotionally centered and ready to share it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks for that question. Cool, yeah. Mm. Sure. I share early and often, which I know isn't for everybody, but I came up in like community writing spaces where we like read out our work multiple times a week. And so for me, like reading in public is like a really important editorial tool, right? To see how the thing sounds, right? How it like lives in the air in the room in a certain moment, like affects the structure or shape of the piece of writing. And it's like a useful tactic and a process of writing. You know, I think that can be tricky when I'm thinking about like dicey sort of political positions, you know, or like, I think like if it's work that I'm like not sure the type of harm it might reproduce, that's kind of a different question. And so I'll spend more time drafting that and sharing that with friends. But if it's work that I feel like grounded in, like, yeah, if it's not going to traumatize people, do you know what I mean? I'll be like, okay, let me see what it's doing. And that's like an important sort of tool. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are writers who are the complete opposite, you know, and will only share work months after it's been completed, you know, after they sort of excise it from a drawer and breathe life back into it, you know. So there's like no wrong way to do it, unless you're hurting people. Yeah, cool, thank you. Yes. Oh, thank you. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that question. To repeat it, so I didn't repeat your question, so hopefully that made sense in my response. But it's a question about page voice and like voice, and sort of how to think about them in conversation, how one leads into the other. That was like the general overview of it. Yeah, you know, I used to say that I didn't think there was a difference between them, and that I wanted to make work that like was like deadly, you know, on the page, in the ear, in the mind as you read it, as it was read aloud to someone else. But I don't agree with that anymore. I think with a recited poem, like the shape of it is like you get to hear it once, and so what lands or sticks in the mind of a reader is what lands and sticks, you know? And maybe it's you can find it again written and return to it and carry that like writer's sort of performed voice with you into the book. But sometimes not, right? And sometimes it's like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but then it's like 10 years later and you're remembering one poem that someone read, and just like this one line you're misremembering has like totally transformed your life. And I think that's one of the most like magical things about the performed or recited poem. I don't know, with work as it lives on the page, like it has like other like qualities and capabilities that are more meditative, that like ask a reader to return, you know, again to the text, right? Where there's like a not like a invited like linear structure of reading, but like also it's one that a reader has a different kind of control over, you know, like, and I'm thinking particularly about poems that are built for a reader to engage with in complex ways, like a contrapuntal thing, or, you know, like where the lines are doing different kinds of work. I don't know. For me, each poem sort of has its own like journey and logic to it and its construction. So I think that there's a lot of work in here that's like intentionally polyvocal and page-driven, that like is interested in like a multiplicity of voices that are like in discordant dialogue. There's this one poem that I didn't read that's like taken all from news headlines about pigs that I collected over 6 years, and so I like built and restructured that, you know. And I think that's a poem that works aloud and also works differently on the page. I don't know. You know, I think you only have so much control over both of the tools, you know, like the oral poem and the written poem, and then the rest is up to y'all, or whoever is generous enough to pick up the book, is how I think. Yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense? Great, let's go. Okay, happy to discuss some more too. Yes, thank you. Okay, any other questions, or are we at the end of our rope? We done listening to me talk? You want to talk about books? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Great question. So much. I wrote a book about it. I can talk to you about it. To go back to your question really quickly, I remember I said something earlier about all writing as a process or practice of translation, you know, in one way or another. And so I think like the move from the oral to the written poem is one form of translation, but the translation of sort of experience into text ever is like a translating process. So I had said that to a couple of y'all earlier, and so it felt like a moment for an echo. Pigs, though. I don't know. Y'all into pigs? Maybe. So I finished my second book, which was published first, and so I was just kind of writing like aimlessly into the ether. And then there's sort of like two origin stories for this as a project, okay? One is my friend Hugh was like, you're always writing about like men and violence and sex, and like those are all pig things. So he claims that happened. I don't remember it at all, okay? He wants to be the origin narrative for this book. The other story, which is the one I remember, and my memory is partial and fragmentary, so, you know, maybe Hugh's story is correct, is I was living in Brooklyn and I would go have morning coffees with this pig named Franklin, who lived behind a hardware store in Brooklyn, Crest Hardware. And so I'd have my little coffees, smoke my little cigarette, look at this pig. He's on Instagram, Franklin the Pig, if you're interested in sort of following along with his journey. He lives with a pit bull. It's really adorable. Anyway, and I had this sort of moment, you know, where I was like looking into this pig's eyes, okay? And I think I wrote about it somewhere in here where I saw like, it was like this pig in captivity, right? But also like had this sort of complex depth of understanding and like aliveness. And so I looked into his eyes and saw sort of like reflected back, I wrote it in here as the terror of our American world, which is dramatic. But I was thinking a lot about the sort of co-evolution of our species, right? And sort of when we think about companion species, or like when we think about our relationship to other living animals, right? How we domesticate and shape this animal changes their genetic systems and their method of sort of community and communication, and that like also shapes us, right, in turn. So over that, you know, the sort of the connection between us and pigs, like we've deeply informed and shaped and changed each other. And so I was like, what does like focusing a lens on this particular relationship sort of offer my understanding of humanity and history? And then so I like looked into it, you know, and I was like, oh, it's everywhere, you know? And I think the last sort of like pig fact that maybe didn't make it into the book, which was the other reason I was interested in the pig as like an object of inquiry, a living object of inquiry, is they're like one of the few domestic species that will rewild if like released, you know? So you'll have hordes of like feral sounders of like pigs that were like in domestication for generations, okay? So like they'll like flee their agricultural prisons and factory farms and just like take over and wreck shop across across the world. And I was like, that's what we need, you know? That's what we need from all of us. We need to leave our universities, okay? We need to wreck shop across this great country. That's my closing remark. Wait, any other questions? Or are we gonna leave it there? Oh yeah, please. A filthy poem? Okay. Okay. I feel suddenly so prude. Okay, this is an ode, so it feels like it's doing a couple other things as well. Okay, this is about getting choked with a belt, which is like a sex thing, if you're into it. But if you do it, be careful about your airways and ability to breathe. And only, I'm not a sex educator, what am I talking about? Okay, this is an ode to being choked with a belt. It's clear the future does not bode well for the living. My man won't let me forget where leather comes from. The engineered animal bent over in chemical grass, the slit thing hanged and blood slunk, skin stripped and tanned in order to keep a man decent. I know how to keep a man. The belt knows how to keep order. The sound of his unbuckling's Pavlovian. A sidewalk split into drooling meat. He beats me into my evening blush. I clutch pearls, eyes the color of a little red coat. Bless this bridle wrapped around my throat while he bloods me. Bless the constricted windpipe's unlikely music. Bless anything that can be remade to eke out pleasure from stone. Oh, bless all this life thrashing against death's garish precipice. Bless me, Lord. Bless me, Dorman. Bless me, cormorant and courtship and torture and husbandry. Give me enough compression to remember I once lived here. And I'll accept, in the end, not even death will wife me. Well, thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. And with that in mind, I'm gonna get out of here.